aka cancel culture. Is there another way? Here's the new
What's up, guys? Helen here, and today we're going to talk about a topic that single-handedly raised America's blood pressure 50 millimeters, which is a lot. That's right, cancel culture. But before we get into it, here's a super casual plea. If you dig our channel, why not check out our podcast? As we like to say, they're really just YouTube videos for your ears. So go get your audio content game on with one or all three of our sublime pods. There's Show Me the Meaning, where hosts Austin, Ryan, and Raymond comb through your favorite movies in search of, as advertised, the seriously deep meaning. Or there's Culture Binge, where we explore the most urgent, fascinating, and deranged things going on in the cultural zeitgeist, with hosts Michael and Serby and special guests like yours truly. And if you stan Dan Harmon, you gotta check out The Squanch, where hosts Michael, Ryan, and friends overanalyze every new Rick and Morty episode until their brains break into the fourth dimension. You can listen to our shows on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever the heck you get your podcasts these days. You can also catch the live streams of each podcast here on the Wisecrack channel, so make sure you got your notifications on. And if you ever do miss an episode, you can always watch the recorded streams over at our Wisecast channel. So why haven't you subscribed yet? Seriously, just do it. And now, back to the show. Now, the primary function of any given cancellation is to publicly shame the person in question for some kind of, technically speaking, up. A recent high-profile example is Chrissy Teigen, model turned social media personality and multi-hyphenate. Here's the skinny. Courtney Stodden, a model most famous for marrying their abusive 51-year-old agent at the age of 16, spoke out about the horrific bullying they endured in the spotlight. They specifically named Teigen, who repeatedly tweeted and messaged cruel things to Stodden.
But it's so damaging when you have somebody like Chrissy Teigen bullying children.
Most egregiously by encouraging them to commit suicide, something that a high school student legit went to jail for a few years ago. After this revelation, other instances of Teigen's public and private online bullying were brought to the internet's attention. Outrage quickly ensued, perhaps in part because Teigen built a whole brand on the strength of her spunky charisma and clapbacky persona, and has previously spoken out about her own experiences being bullied. Teigen was subsequently dropped from a Netflix show, lost most of her business affiliations, and relinquished her status as Twitter darling. The
This stuff is so dumb, dude. I swear to God, cancel culture only works if you let it. Okay, that's it.
At HasanAbi eveyone.
Like, ultimately, like it's exactly that. She's no longer the Twitter darling. Okay, why does Hasan love this mini fridge so much, dude? I don't know why. I think it's so cute. I love having, like, I originally hated it because it constantly makes noise in the background. It's always like a zzz, like a little sound in the background. But it's dope. Like, I just... Boop. Got a little handle on it. It's a fussy. It's got a little fussy on it, dude. Boop. I open it up. It's like an old-timey fridge. And I put a couple drinks in there. I don't know how much it is, but... my mom is hearing me talk about it right now and going, ah, so you like it. Because she's the one who was like, no, you should definitely have the fridge there. Because I'm a fucking kid, okay? That's why. That's why I like it. Because I'm a fucking child. Sue me. I like how smug you look after using it. I feel like it feels good, okay? It feels like I didn't have to make an extra trip, even though I'm going to go and pee right now.
While a Teigen-style public shaming wasn't possible until digital hell on earth was invented in 2009, America is no stranger to public shaming for various infractions. Our country has a delightfully sadistic history of using public punishment like stocks and whippings for crimes as small as adultery, blasphemy, and, our favorite, erecting a maypole when it wasn't May Day. Now, obviously, Chrissy Teigen experiencing a Twitter takedown is not equivalent to a Puritan woman being whipped for coveting her neighbor's boner. However, both are excellent examples of something called retributive justice. In his defense
Sorry, that's such a... I'm sorry.
of it, legal scholar Joseph Weiler explains that retributive justice is based on society's desire to mete out deserved punishment for the commission of offenses against laws which define and protect the freedom of its members. That is...
It's also not the same because, like, people are yelling at...
17 months.
People are yelling at Chrissy Teigen over, like, something that's bad versus, like, whatever the fuck that example is. Like, you didn't really do anything bad, you know what I mean? Like, the witch hunts weren't bad because they were, like, murdering... I mean, I don't believe in capital punishment, but, like, let's say they were murdering people who had done murders themselves. The witch hunts were bad because they were murdering people who were just like, oh, you're a witch,
Happy
dude,
birthday.
because you're kind of hot and you're a woman.
Is to say, retributive justice is primarily concerned with punishing somebody proportionately to the harm they caused. Under the theory of retributive justice, it is even morally good to give an offender their just desserts. Retributive justice dates all the way back to the ancient Babylonian Code of Hammurabi, and appears in the Bible in that classic line, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And philosophers like Immanuel Kant stand state-imposed retributive justice, arguing that under proportionate punishment, a thief must be punished by not being allowed to own any property, while a murderer must be punished by death. This sounds suspiciously in line with Tegan's punishment. She sent super mean tweets, and now she's on the receiving end of super mean tweets. But is justice really being served when people tell Chrissy Teigen to take a dirt nap? A lot of thinkers would say no, and for a number of reasons. A common critique? When all the focus is on punishing the perpetrator, we kinda conveniently forget about the victim who endured the harm in the first place. That is, in our gusto to get back at the bad guy, we rarely consider how the victim is doing. I.e., is anyone who's lashing out at Teigen really thinking about Stodden's feelings? What's more, retributive justice has almost no concern with facilitating accountability. That is, with having the perpetrator take responsibility for their actions, offer an explanation for their mistakes.
Yes, cancel culture, or the way that Americans engage in cancel culture, is inherently draconian. Absolutely. Without a doubt. 100%. This is why I talk about America's like draconian attitudes towards crime and punishment all the fucking time. That's why I get so mad when people try to come in here and be like, dude, what the fuck? This guy said something that was bad like fucking 10 years ago. It's like, okay, what do you want me to do? Go murder him? Like, all right, dude. Well, you know, before you fucking literally invent a time machine so you can go back in time and like get them to stop doing that, anything short of that, you're fucking delusional, okay? Especially if they have shown that they're different. Especially if they've shown that that's not who, doesn't, you know, they don't represent this person anymore.
And promise to, do better. In fact, when internet cancelees do ostensibly attempt to take responsibility, it's typically, and maybe fairly, dismissed as a cynical PR stunt. In the retributive justice of cancel culture, our focus is pretty much all on the punishment, whether it's getting someone fired or just getting them to really super hate themselves. But what's the alternative to straight-up punishment? America's a country pretty preoccupied with all things punitive. I mean, we have a chill 6.7 million people in the criminal justice system, including parole, for God's sake. So it's not surprising that we seem constitutionally incapable of finding an alternative way to dole out justice. But what if there was a way to enact justice that was less obsessed with an eye for an eye and more interested in, say, minimizing pain at large, improving society, and most of all, helping victims move—
No! It won't make my fifis feel good when I fucking get in a group and we all collectively decide. No! This analysis is kind of funny and ironic as it's pointing out the problem with cancel culture is something that conservatives love. It's not, because I always talk about this, right? Like, cancel culture is a universal concept. Conservatives engage in it probably more than liberals do, even though all of the coverage of it comes from one side, where it's like conservatives pointing the finger and saying, oh, only liberals do canceling. Like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, liberals do it all the time too, don't get me wrong. But like, there's a reason why conservatism is associated with like free speech, free speech, free speech. We love free speech. While even during like the Trump era, where they constantly talked about free speech, free speech, free speech, free speech, they literally were fucking responsible for the overwhelming majority of books being canceled, or rather, it's being taken off like the reading list in schools and shit like that. You know, they did that for LGBT books. Like, oh, you can't learn about homosexuals. While they were talking about fucking how this is 1987 George Orwell Animal Factory Animal Crossing, brother. They're literally in the process of trying to cancel CRT. They don't even know what the fuck CRT is, and they're trying to cancel it. They did this with Colin Kaepernick. It's not, you could say cringe take, but I'm sorry. You might be Lyric's mom, but I fucked your mom, okay? And that's not a cringe take. When you have no argument, you just say, cringe take. It's cringe. I don't like that you are adequately pointing the hypocrisy. I don't like it. Cringe. It's a cringe take. Okay? Yeah, you can say I'm cringe, but I'm right.
move on from the traumas they've endured. Sound too good to be true? Enter restorative justice, a system of accountability focused on doing just that. As one of the modern movement's founders, Howard Zare, puts it, restorative justice provides an alternative framework for thinking about wrongdoing. It's less concerned with punishment than with considering the needs and roles of all parties involved. The start of any attempt at restorative justice considers the victim, in this case Stoughton, and
Imagine being in the 30s and still using your mom jokes. Lol, 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 lol. I can imagine, and there's a part of the reason why I do it, and that is because your mom seems to enjoy it because I fuck your mom as well. Oh, dude, fuck. Oh my god. Christ, why? Why do you always? Why do you want this? Why? Yeah, I did. I fucked your mom too. And guess what? Guess what, chatter? She fucking loves. Absolutely loves when I make I fucked your mom jokes. She says, yeah,
8 months, can't wait to
you
get
did
back
fuck
at
me.
it.
And you fucked me good. Sorry. Just kidding. I'm not even remotely sorry, bitch. Let's keep going with the video.
and others, and assesses the harm they endured because of Tegan's actions. It then asks, how can we make things whole? Retributive justice promises to do so by doling out punishments, but is it functionally making things right? Proponents of restorative justice would probably say, nah. Importantly, restorative justice distinguishes between the idea of punishment and consequences. That is, between forcing the perpetrator to suffer and forcing the perpetrator to face up to what they did and try to make things right. In this way, it centers responsibility, accountability, and the wrongdoer's obligations to their community in healing the harm done. So in the case of Chrissy Teigen, the question would be less, how do we make Teigen suffer, and more, how do we make things right by Stoughton and facilitate their recovery from this painful period of their life? To that end, restorative justice often includes a face-to-face meeting between victim and offender, who are often joined by family or community members. At these meetings, the victim is given time to ask questions and to state the harms inflicted. It's also an opportunity for the perpetrator to take responsibility and give an apology. From there, the offender is often assigned specific obligations tailored.
How can you make a thing right if you killed the person? Their families. In retributive justice, the healing process focuses on the harm committed to the families by ending someone's life.
To their case, sometimes centered around changing their behavior or performing community service, or a host of other options. The goal of restorative justice is to eventually reintegrate the victim and the offender back into their community. These meetings often end with amends and closure. Restorative justice, in its modern iteration, draws inspiration from indigenous communities, especially those from North America and New Zealand, including Navajo peacemaking courts. Such a model has, since 1989, been the
What if they do it's a violent or rape crime? It's the same.
primary way that New Zealand treats juvenile criminal offenders, and has resulted in a 15% reduction in those offenders committing future crimes. Of course, with cancel culture, we're not dealing with a criminal justice system, and we admit we had trouble imagining what restorative justice really looks like in the context of internet cancel culture. After all, going to Twitter for nuanced discourse is like going to Hot Topic for an elegant wedding dress. What's more, attempts at online restorative justice could easily turn into performative grandstanding devoid of any actual depth, the exact kind of thing Teigen was roasted for in her apology post. But author and activist Adrienne Marie Brown has some ideas, as outlined in her recent booklet, We Will Not Cancel Us, in which she asks, can we release our binary ways of thinking of good and bad in order to collectively grow from mistakes? While she's specifically discussing the rise of cancellations in activist groups, we think her arguments can be applied to society at large.
I don't want rapists back in society. Let them rot. I think it's okay to be draconian about the worst crimes. No, it's still not okay. The idea behind it is still the same, dude. Vengeance is not justice, okay? Vengeance is not justice. It'll make you feel good for like a brief moment, maybe. Okay? What's just is if you successfully stop that person from ever doing rape again. Okay? That's how it works.
Sometimes it is though.
We have the same discussion all the time, dude. All the fucking time. What if it's not about vengeance, but about keeping people safe? What? How are you keeping people safe? How? You're not keeping anybody safe with that. First of all, harsher penalties are proven to not be a good deterrence measure for crimes that other people might commit. So that's number one. The best way to tackle crime is by tackling the material conditions, the underlying material conditions that create violent crime and crime in general. It's absolutely cringe how amazing your takes are. I am Lyric's mom. Thank you. See, restorative justice right there. He just restored itself. Some people need to be away from society and protect it and people. There is certainly one group of individuals or one type of crime committed by a group of individuals that does, with at least our current medical knowledge and understanding of it, require round-the-clock surveillance. Okay? Criminally violent psychopaths are that group of individuals. That doesn't mean we should be like literally being like, oh, you're a psychopath. There you go. You're branded. You're always going to be fucking seen as a, as an enemy. But having said that, I thought you were going to make a segue. I'm traumatized. No. Don't harsher penalties generally lead to more aggressive and violent actions to prevent witnesses? Harsher penalties just simply do not work, dude. What about crimes such as rape and sexual assault? Doesn't that transcend class like rich white men do rape all the time? Okay, something that people don't understand is like, I'm not saying we shouldn't charge criminals. Like, I'm not saying abolish all laws, okay? I'm not even saying that like we have to abolish prisons in its entirety. There's always still going to be, at least with our current medical knowledge, okay, as much as science allows it, there's always still going to be fucking people that do shit that is impossible to comprehend. Okay? But the goal for the overwhelming majority of people that are currently incarcerated is rehabilitation. It should always be rehabilitation. It should be rehabilitation unconditionally for every single person so they can be reintroduced and reintegrated back into society in successful ways.
Brown notes the disturbing way cancel culture resembles a feeding frenzy among sharks. She writes, "We are full of justified rage, and we want to release that rage. And one really fast and easy way to do this is what I experience as a knee-jerk collective punishment, i.e. retributive justice, that's all about causing pain rather than righting wrongs." She asks, why does it feel like we're committed to punishment and enjoying it? That is to say, are we just Puritans with smartphones? See, call-out culture can be immensely satisfying to our lizard brains. When we paint someone like Tegan as bad and beyond redemption, it makes us feel better about ourselves. What's more, it can even feel productive when we declare Tegan no longer worthy.
Czar, rehabilitation is a failed concept. Yeah, I think Russians do feel that way about you, Czar.
Of a public platform and expunge her from our culture, it can feel like we're cleansing society of a major ill. But
said Czar.
According to Brown, cancel culture is predicated on the assumption that problems like violence and sexism and racism stem from individual violent people or sexist or racists. She argues that, more accurately, these social ills come from society at large. The oppressive instincts are baked into our larger communities rather than resulting from individual bad apples. That is to say, when someone does or says something racist on Twitter.com, it's not like they made up racism in a vacuum. Don't get us wrong, personal responsibility absolutely plays a role. But these types of tweets are also symptomatic of the racism that permeates our entire society and has ever since Columbus got lost and showed up uninvited on our shores. Following this train of thought, Brown explains, we won't end the systemic patterns of harm by isolating and picking off individuals. Given this reality, she explains, canceling someone for saying something racist doesn't solve racism, and if anything, can distract from the huge structural issues that make people think and say racist things in the first place. As she writes, we are all connected to each other at our best and our worst. In the case of Tegan, it's worth noting that while what she did and said was horrible, she was merely one voice in the collective bandwagon roasting Courtney Stodden, then a literal child. The media
3
treated
months,
Stodden
thanks for the cool
horrifically,
takes,
mocking
3.
and deriding them mercilessly, which, by their own account, only compounded the trauma they experienced in their abusive relationship. While canceling Tegan can feel satisfying, it doesn't begin to make up for the way society
Worse, it
collectively
sucks.
hurts Stodden. Again, instead of centering Stodden's pain, we're going ham on Tegan's punishment. In this vein, Brown takes restorative justice a step further. She argues that restoring things to the flawed way they were before isn't enough. We need to transform them via what she and others call transformative justice. Now, if you're thinking all this sounds a bit woo-woo, it's worth looking at how restorative justice actually functions in criminal justice systems. The results can be inspiring. Consider one New Zealand defender who burglarized 2 houses and made amends with his victims through a group conference, did community service, and earned back the money he stole by saving $50 a week. The victims were so impressed by his dedication that they told him to keep the money for his new baby rather than return it. Similar results and similar closure have even occurred in cases of murder, where victims' families have actually befriended the perpetrator after restorative justice efforts brought them together. Of course, there's no criminal justice system on Twitter, but there are examples of a restorative justice model working online, and one has to do with your favorite TV creator, Dan Harmon, who was accused in 2018 of making
Literally, the fucking, like, Dan Harmon's case is basically like the fucking, I don't know how to describe it. Like, what he did and the way he atoned for it is it should be written in fucking books, okay?
inappropriate advances
It's like the
toward
best
an employee,
example of
Megan Gantz, and
apologizing
eventually
for your past
her
actions. Is the
after she
best. Is a
rejected
blueprint.
him. After she spoke out about the injustice, Harmon took full accountability, started a dialogue with her, apologized, and made public statements about his wrongdoings. Gantz subsequently forgave him, rather than simply using the opportunity to cancel him. And Harmon genuinely used the opportunity to learn, grow, and promise to do better. Harmon and writer Jessica Gao even started a podcast dedicated to exploring racism and sexism in the comedy writing world. So hey, progress? While this is a good example, it required the willingness of all parties involved, the person accused of wrongdoing to step up and take accountability, the victim to be willing to listen, and the internet collectively being willing to give Harmon another shot. Which definitely had nothing to do with the fact that he's responsible for some of the best television of our time. So is there a world where what happened with Dan Harmon could happen with Chrissy Teigen? Maybe, but we're not gonna bet on it. It seems for restorative justice to regularly work in the digital world, it would practically require everyone on the internet to magically agree, which, yeah, we don't see that happening. But what we do think is that the mechanisms of cancel culture, in the case of folks like Teigen, may stem from good intentions to hold people accountable, but don't—
What's that story? I mean, it's pretty fucking cut and dry. He like sexually harassed Megan Gantz, one of the writers, under his team, and then he fucking apologized for it. And she accepted his apology. Rick and Morty was very sexist during the beginning, so the damage was done. What? This wasn't even on fucking Rick and Morty. If you're gonna get fucking mad, at least get mad at the right thing, dude. It's such a perfect example of people who are just like upset about shit for just the sake of sounding upset. Yeah, it was on Community, but
generally create positive change or make us better, because it's too focused on punishing individuals rather than transforming systemic problems. But what do you guys think? Is cancel culture productive? Can restorative or transformative justice ever work for internet offenses? Are we canceled for making this video? Let us—
I don't get it, bro. If you just apologize and this is supposed to be special, what the fuck? I think that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that's all you can do. Is if you fucked up and you were a bad person, that's the best thing you can do is atone, recognize that it's bad, and then, you know, never do it again. That's the best thing you can expect from people, is to change for the better. You know what I mean? Like, what do people want? Blood, I guess? Ludwig Ogren. Mogul Money is back. Featuring the greatest reactors from Twitch and YouTube. Hasan the Hun and Cody Ko. Reply who you want the third guest to be.